So
and see who's going to pick up the victory. Yes, Cedric.
one thing I've noticed over our like 2 years of doing coverage together, Marshall, you and I, and doing the stuff that we did with Arena and everything, there are some people I'm just like, man, that person just never loses. Like Javier. It's just like, man, I feel like I never see Javier lose.
And then we've never covered a match where he lost.
Right? Like, it just doesn't feel like he ever loses. And then sometimes I'm like, man, doesn't ever really feel like Mengucci loses. And I've been getting that vibe recently with Jean-Emmanuel, where I'm just like, does he ever? I mean, like, I just feel like every tournament's like, yeah, just another bread and butter, really top level, top 8 finish. Or, yep, he's just right at the top of the MPL standings. Or, yep, he's got a really good build of a deck for a tournament. I just feel like consistently he's not talked about in the same breath as like an Asif, who had an amazing year last year, or Javier or anything. But I feel like it's coming. I really do.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've watched Jean-Emmanuel play quite a bit. I remember watching him play around at the World Magic Cup, where France had a really strong run. And the thing that stood out about his play style and his skill set is interestingly one that I also attribute to Martin Juza, and that's patience. Jean-Emmanuel, I was standing over his shoulder doing the spotter roll. That's where we have the iPad and we type in the players' hands and stuff for paper tournaments. And he had numerous occasions where he could just go for it, right? It looked good. It was probably fine. He had a really good chance to win if he just went for it. And he chose not to because he had a slightly higher percentage on just sitting still. And I watched him do that for turn after turn after turn, exhibiting real patience. And it's something that Martin's known for as well, as he does like to get in. Like, even when he plays limited, he likes to just draft real straightforward decks. But he's also known for playing around spells and being able to really understand the right time to do so. By the way, a little head shake there from Jean-Emmanuel. He's going down to 5 here, said. Yikes.
He's gone down to 5. We've got Martin on 6, but on a 1-lander. And this game could get pretty ugly. Now, if Martin does peel off a red source, this game is probably over immediately here for Jean-Emmanuel. And Jean-Emmanuel is just drawing lands at this point. So the Fetipul cycle, is going to be pretty darn good. There you go. See?
It is. And there's Galia of the Endless Dance to come down. That's going to pump up both pelt collectors. And we're going to see a proper attack here. 7 damage coming over, where Jean-Emmanuel can do absolutely nothing but stare here. Maybe he can cycle fetid pools, but that's about as good as it's going to get. And look at that. It even triggers Galia's ability as well. Discard a card at random, draw 2 cards. And although it did happen to be the Questing Beast to hit the bin, it was replaced by an On-Crop Crasher as well as a land there. And he already had a Questing Beast in hand. So it's really all coming up Juza at this point.
Yeah, Martin right now, if you're playing, you're just kind of thinking, okay, like, what can my opponent do? Only 3 mana. Probably has some sort of removal spell here. Can only play one of them. So, okay, so one of my creatures is going to die. One of my best ones, which would be a Pelt Collector or the On-Crop Crasher. So going to play that as opposed to the Questing Beast here. Get in with everybody. We'll probably see an activation here again of Galia, because remember, you don't have to do that. You have the option. But he is going to take action, lose his Questing Beast, picked up a couple more cards, and yeah, we're going to be all set here in just a moment.
Yeah. Jean-Emmanuel is just like, yeah, okay, whatever. Right? Just puts his hands up in the air. Oh, there's a Languish, though, off the top. Hey, that's the name of the game there. Unfortunately, another haste creature is all it takes, and there's an On-Crop Crusher in hand. Jean-Emmanuel says, okay, fine. Look, here's the bottom line. Even with a 7-card hand, Jean-Emmanuel is going to have a difficult time beating that hand. And so he's just going to take his medicine here for game number 1. And hope that on the play in game number 2, he can not only keep a better hand than the 5 that he ended up with, but also hopefully Martin doesn't have such a potent draw.
Yeah, for sure. And it is notable here that, again, I do think this is kind of an interesting matchup, right? Because on a general level, Martin's like, okay, I brought this Gruul deck to beat Sultai decks. And Jean-Emmanuel's like, well, I have built my Sultai deck to actually be pretty good against Gruul decks. So Martin is not getting the edge that he normally would be getting in a spot like this. Still totally fine, nothing to be unhappy about, but he's not kind of getting the, oh man, these Sultai decks just have no shot against me. They've got like 3 or 4 copies of Doom Whisperer. They've cut their Krasis. They don't have Fatal Pushes. That said, I still do like Martin in the matchup, and you saw how quickly these players sideboarded and getting ready here for game number 2.
Boom, boom, boom. These are the matchups that these players will have been most prepared for on both sides. And let's see if Jean-Emmanuel has a keeper here. It looks like a 2-lander with a Fatal Push, an Ether Gust, a pair of Scavenging Oozes, and then maybe a Shark Typhoon for a little later down the line. What about the hand for Martin Juza?
Good, not great. Probably have to keep it. Obviously, you'd like to have a 1-drop to kick the game off. That would be best case scenario. But if you're going to have a no 1-drop hand, then it's got to be a Burning Tree Emissary plus a thing. And so you've got Burning Tree Emissary into Scavenging Ooze, and then you've got a turn 3 play roll up as well. You've also got a Raymond Ruins for a little bit of reach. Your mana looks good with those Pathways and Stomping Grounds. So I would probably keep, but I wouldn't be thrilled about it.
Okay.
And hopefully I peel off a 1-drop, which I didn't if I'm Martin. So there you go.
You did not. Yeah, there's a Ramanop Ruins off the top. It's just going to be Stomping Ground go here for Martin. Usually passes a turn back to Depraz, who thus far has not found that second mana source. Unfortunately for him as well, it's 2 tap lands, though he is at the ready with Fatal Push, though he can't really interrupt what's happening here as the Burning Tree Emissary is going to hit the battlefield, produce its 2 mana. That's going to produce a Scavenging Ooze, and Jean-Emmanuel will have his choice on what to kill. Easy decision there. Scavenging Ooze has an activated ability. Burning Tree Emissary does not. He takes it down, cracks the Fatal Passage. And did he hit a land here for that Uro? It looks like he may have a swamp, perhaps.
It looks like we found a swamp here. Now, the question, of course, is do you want to play Uro this turn, or do you want to do something else, like play a Scavenging Ooze and remove a creature? It looks like he's going to go with the latter, which is Ooze, immediately turn this into a 3/3. The assumption here also, Marshall, is that any removal that Martin might have in game 1, he's got a couple copies of Bone Crusher Giant. Probably not really in the deck, doesn't have a lot of targets. So Ooze coming down and being a 3/3 is pretty safe.
Jean-Emmanuel, with 3 lands on the battlefield and a 3/3 Scavenging Ooze facing only a 2/2, says we're looking great here.
I like getting this card established.
You like Klothys?
I really, really do, because though it's not coming down and taking care of an Uro on the first activation, most likely, the fact that this is difficult to get off of the battlefield, ignoring Ether Dust, is really, really nice. And it also just kind of slowly puts a little bit of pressure on Depraz to play a certain style of game. Now, can Ooze kind of counteract this card? It can, but that means that you're kind of locking in a mana of Depraz as well, which is not a bad situation to be in. So I really generally like getting Klothys down on the battlefield as soon as you can in a matchup like this.
Jean-Emmanuel now planning things out, having found land number 4. This one is a Zagoth Triome. So slow mana here for Jean-Emmanuel, but we'll see how it goes.
I like some beatdowns. Okay.
This is aggressive. I like it. Yeah. Jean-Emmanuel gets in for 3 with the Scavenging Ooze, plays the land, and passes the turn back. Now we're going to see the trigger go on the stack from Klothys. But it is going to target a card, and that, of course, means that Jean-Emmanuel has the opportunity to respond if he'd like and shut down that activation from Klothys, which is exactly what he's going to do.
It's a weird, like, I'm taxing your mana style situation, but given that Jean-Emmanuel has mana available, he's going to pay to remove that card, as you mentioned, and still has Ether Gust at the ready. So this is a pretty good exchange right now here for Jean-Emmanuel.
Interesting lineup here for Martin Juza, as Jean-Emmanuel, having attacked, perhaps predicting that he wouldn't be able to block anyway with his Scavenging Ooze and may as well get in for the damage, does leave the door open here for Martin Juza to perhaps play the Spellbreaker plus the Llanowar Elves rather than the On-Crop Crasher, as he does happen to have options on either here. And that looks like the line of play he's going to take here. Now, this doesn't wake up Klothys, does it? Oh, it does.
Yes, it does.
Hello.
Now, it's going to be put back to bed here via the Ether Gust. The question is, what are we going to target? And it looks like it's just going to be Klothys. Can't target Gruul Spellbreaker because it is Martin's turn. And targeting Burning Tree Emissary is kind of an interesting decision, but Klothys is definitely the best card of the bunch. So decisions now, if you are Martin, do I actually want to draw this card again?
Right, and you see him go into the tank, and I think that's just because of Scavenging Ooze here. He's just looking at it like, well, Klothys and that tax is good early, or at least good enough, but it really does start to fade when the scavenging ooze just sort of cleanly goes over the top of it, and it looks like he's going to decline. He's going to put it on the bottom of his library. So Ether Gust, just a full-on removal spell to get rid of a Klothys there. Not too bad.
Yeah, and Martin electing, as you said, putting it to the bottom. I think Martin's hoping for something a little bit more powerful in the face of Scavenging Ooze. Best draw right now, I think, if you're Martin, is just Collected Company. So we'll see if he's able to peel one off the top.
That's right. A second copy of Scavenging Ooze is okay. They don't scale. Oh, hello, my friend. Collected Company. Right off the top of the library here for Juza. Hey, I mean, that's what he was planning, right? He just said, I think I'd rather draw Collected Company than Klothys, so I'll put Klothys on the bottom.
I am from the future.
Easy game for Cedric and Martin, as it turns out. And oftentimes you'll see a Collected Company get cast during the main phase, even though it is an instant. Very tempting to wait till your opponent's end step to cast it so that they can't sweep things away with sorcery speed effects, and also so that they don't really know what the landscape looks like. Might make their plays more difficult. But with the prevalence of so many haste creatures in the deck here for Juza, it's very tempting to just Collected Company during your main phase.
Yeah, and so what are the best hits in a situation like this? I mean, you'd love to probably find a Crasher plus something else. Okay.
Yeah. How about a Crasher plus something else, Cedric? Jeez.
I am from the future.
What is going on?
See, you people don't probably like, oh, well, they're watching a pre-recorded match. No,
we're not.
This is just my little aggro brain going to work here. Martin and I are just aggro players by nature.
You are lockstep. You're making the plans and he's executing them.
That's right.
I think he's pretty happy with this arrangement, by the way.
So I think, okay, so we're taking a look here. It's okay. So what do I make not able to block? It's going to be the bigger Scavenging Ooze. Martin was thinking about it for a little bit, but yeah, I think you target the bigger Scavenging Ooze and say, you know what, exert with the On-Crop Crasher. You can't block. Here I come. Going to want to trade with this. Okay, cool. And then you can grow the Ooze into a 4/4 on your end step once the creatures do trade. So there's that. Decent amount of damage coming through. So I like how things are going, but I am also, we got a little Uro action hanging out in the graveyard right now. Only 3 cards in the graveyard. You saw Martin check that. So a little ways away, actually. Oh, that's nice, too. That's another haste creature.
Geez, there's Gallia plus another On-Crop Crasher. Both can come down this turn as well. Man, Martin used a full-on pedal to the metal. There are no breaks in this game here for Jean-Emmanuel. Martin able to present easily enough for lethal over what's on the board at the moment. Does he have enough to present lethal even through the Shark Typhoon?
I think almost assuredly, because remember that the Scavenging Ooze is not going to be allowed to block, assuming no removal spells here. So this means that Depraz has exactly 1 blocker as things currently stand. So now Depraz has to think to himself, okay, this Crasher's a problem. Do I cycle Shark Typhoon now and try to hit a Gust? Or do I just wait? Or do I cycle Shark Typhoon and try to hit a removal spell? And if I do, how much am I cycling Shark Typhoon for? Right. I believe that he can safely cycle Shark Typhoon for 3 and make a 3/3. He'll still have 2 mana available to hit a Gust and eliminate a Heartless Axe style card, like just any 2 or 1 mana interaction before the attackers are declared.
That would leave him at 1. Yeah, he could block and go down to just 1, but he's going to have to get pretty lucky here. Martin Juza really applying maximum pressure. I mean, there's been no chill here from Juza for this entire match, and this thing could just be over if Jean-Emmanuel doesn't hit something relevant right now.
Okay, we are live.
He found an eliminate. Now he can use that on the Crasher before it attacks. That prevents the exert. And look at Juza. He's like, oh, we actually got a game here. Okay.
And remember, that's one of those spots, right, where, in like a game of Limiter or something, you'd be like, yeah, attack with everything. And then I'm going to kill your thing, eat your 2 blockers, go down to 1, and I'll be fine. But because of the Exert and On-Crop Crasher, it says, oh, yeah, right, Scavenging Ooze can't block. So On-Crop Crasher is actually kind of a removal spell in its own right in that situation. So you actually do have to kill that Yeah, you need to discard something to draw 2. The problem here, and it sounds like we're muted, so hopefully we do come back.
Yeah.
The problem is that there's an Uro hanging out in the graveyard, and there's a Scavenging who's already on the battlefield. So this is not as easy as it seems. Uh-oh, we're back.
Sweet.
The audio is back.
All right, well, in comes the team here. Martin Juza deciding ultimately that even though Jean-Emmanuel just went cycle into a blocker plus a removal spell, that it's best to just get everything into the red zone. Jean-Emmanuel rips Elder Gargaroth.
All right, so Gargaroth, let's take a look at that draw. When you're sitting at 1 and your opponent has a Rainmap appearance in the battlefield, Gargaroth is not exactly what the doctor ordered. So,
but he's got 2 extra mana, said.
That's a good point. But
we've also got to 3, have 3 blockers. Oh my goodness.
But I think we got enough cards. I think we got enough cards in the graveyard to get this big fella back.
Oh, that's even better.
And Uro is generally better than most things going on in the format of Historic.
True.
So you get this Knucklehead back, you get a little life, you draw a card, you still got a green mana available to remove a creature from the graveyard.
Here's more drama, though. Martin Juza rips Collected Company off the top. This could easily give him the win right now. Jean-Emmanuel has to say, look, one good top deck deserves another. Let's see if Martin can hit the win. Jean-Emmanuel's waiting rather impatiently over there. What is going on? Once he sees that Coco go on the stack, he is not going to be happy. He'll probably smile, though, the way that this game's gone so far.
Crasher.
There it is. And there's the smile from Jean-Emmanuel. Does he hit a couple of his creatures? Crasher. What does he get?
Come on, crash me.
All right.
Those are whiffs.
Of Scavenging Ooze. That is not enough to get the job done this turn. And Jean-Emmanuel nods his head and says, okay, I might still be alive here.
Yeah, I think Jean-Emmanuel is going to make it out of this turn alive. And if he makes it out of this turn alive, then he makes it out of this game because, as you know, Marshall, that means that Uro is going to start attacking. So that's going to be 3 more life and a new card. Nissa might work its way into the equation this turn. This following turn, Nissa plus Gargaroth might work its way into the equation the following turn. And then, as we said so many times with this Sultai deck, when they get to play multiple spells in a turn, especially 5 mana ones, it's too much to beat.
It just is simply too much. And look at that. An Uro off the top as well will allow Jean-Emmanuel to potentially pad his life total further in conjunction with Nissa if he decides that having the highest possible life total right now is the key. If he decides that being on board, having the blockers, including a Gargaroth, is what needs to be done here, he has options on that as well. Incredible. You see a double block here from Martin Juza attempting to kill Uro. And it does look like that's going to work here unless Jean-Emmanuel wants to take the risk on the growth spiral to try to find something to break up this double.
I'm probably okay with this exchange, Jean-Emmanuel. Martin, this is kind of the exchange you make, right, where you just go, okay, double block, I get to keep one of my creatures, and then I get to eat the Uro with the ooze. So it, like, feels fine, but this is why this game is so difficult for Martin now, because you have to make a double block in a situation where you don't want to make a double block. You want to be able to continue to go wide and do what your deck does with creatures, but this one's just getting away from him now.
You can see that Martin's looking at it, and he knows that he's behind now, that this is going to continue to snowball in Jean-Emmanuel's direction if it goes for another turn or two. So I think what he's doing is saying, okay, what if I draw like Collected Company? I let you keep this Uro. I take the hit that my life total doesn't really matter at this point. You're down a blocker. I keep all of my attackers. What if I were to draw another Collected Company and hit an on-crop crasher plus a haste creature, or 2 on-crop crash, something insane, right? Because he really does at this point need to get lucky, right? It doesn't look like if we sit here and Martin draws a 2-drop or a 3-drop, that's going to be enough to win him the game.
Yep. Martin's good draws are very few and far between. Truth be told, I do just think the company is his best draw, and him just spiking perfectly with probably like 2 on-crop crashers, and even that might not be enough. But if it's going to be enough, it's got to be on this coming turn, because anything like a Pell Collector or Land War Elves, just there are so many cards that are irrelevant in the face of a soon-to-be Elder Gargaroth, a Nissa, just all this stuff.
In the meantime, Jean-Emmanuel working through his options here. He's at 8 life. And, it's interesting because he knows that Martin has no cards in hand. So he's probably thinking similar things, especially after no block there from Martin. Martin considered the double block and then decided not to. And he's probably thinking, okay, what's my worst case scenario here? Martin draws collected company, hits a few different, just think of the worst few combos. Double on crop crasher, you and I mentioned, comes off as probably the worst. Here comes Nissa, who shakes the world as Jean-Emmanuel Depraz puts the finishing touches on an incredible Game 2 victory there. That's going to force a Game 3. Wow. I have to say, we have to rewind to that clutch moment where Jean-Emmanuel facing lethal cycles to make a 3-3 shark and even finds the removal spell with nothing else going on. Needed it, found it, and was able to just scrap out a victory there.
So I'm going to sound like a broken record here. I know a lot of people that have watched the coverage that I do, especially involving aggressive decks, but this is just true. You're a hyper-aggressive deck against a control deck that's got more powerful cards than you. Where do you want to be for Game 3? On the play.
Yes. Yeah, give me a 1-drop on the play here, says Martin Juza, as we saw an unlikely comeback there from Jean-Emmanuel. But Cedric, I got to say, you were breaking down this matchup and breaking down some of the reasons why Martin brought this deck, and particularly the card choices that he's found for this deck. And even though Jean-Emmanuel did win that second game, boy, I can see why Martin did so. This deck looks really appealing. It looks extremely difficult for Jean-Emmanuel to contend with.
It is extremely difficult. I love the build that Martin has specifically to beat Sultai. If you're coming into this weekend, as Martin did, assuming that Sultai is going to be the most played deck and you want to play Gruul, I think this is the best build to beat Gruul, to beat Sultai with these on-crop crashers. That said, again, Jean-Emmanuel did come somewhat prepared to battle against Gruul with these copies of Fatal Push and everything else that we have seen. Elder Gargaroth, which is a card that has kind of gone in and out of this style of strategy. So I like the matchup for Martin, but I also like the build that Jean-Emmanuel has here. So I think we're geared up for a nice little third game.
Martin Juza has the turn 1 Llanowar Elves, but Fatal Push shoves it over the edge, and that's going to lead the way here for Burning Tree Emissary into either Gallia or Scavenging Ooze. Martin's going to sequence it such that Scavenging Ooze comes down here, then Gallia next turn he can attack with everything.
Yeah, sequencing it this way, as you mentioned, allows for a Gallia trigger. There is an argument to be made there of just you play the Gallia because you assume another removal spell is going to be played, and then your Scavenging Ooze lives and actually is around to be able to remove a card like Uro. But I understand why you'd want to sequence things this way as well. So we are going to see the Gallia afterward, ideally an attack with all 3 creatures to trigger this legendary Satyr. But I've got a feeling that Jean-Emmanuel is going to have something to say about that.
That's right. And the only question for him at this point is, would he like to use an Ether Gust, which I assume that card on the left is, or a Fatal Push here? And it is more mana efficient at this point for him to use Ether Gust, so he's going to do so. Interestingly, he's going to hit the Scavenging Ooze. Now, that will allow Gallia to still get in and attack this turn. What it will not do is allow Gallia's triggered ability to happen.
So, looks like we're going to see a push here. Perhaps? No, it's actually going to be a gust. Pardon me.
Yeah, he's gusting the Scavenging Ooze.
Yeah, and he's eating Martin. Martin is eating the push that's in the graveyard. So here's your attack for 4. Wanting to draw to Ooze again makes a lot of sense to me. You are playing against a deck that has Uro after all.
And there it is, Scavenging Ooze back on top of the library and into hand here for Juza. He has one of his potentially key sideboard cards in Chandra, Torch of Defiance. That's a type of card that can run away with the game if left unchecked. And as you can see, at least currently in Jean-Emmanuel's hand, he doesn't have an answer for it. So we're going to see Chandra, Torch of Defiance go on the stack. And yep, a big nod there from Jean-Emmanuel. Can't do anything about it right now. And this is going to be a steady stream of either mana, card advantage, or just straight up damage here from Juza for as long as it's on the battlefield.
Absolutely. I mean, the idea here is just plus, deal you 2, deal you 2, deal you 2. You know, we're going to still kind of play this game inside of combat, right? Of, okay, you're doing your thing, I'm doing my thing, stuff like that. But 2 damage along the way. And, you know, of course, if there's a friendly reveal like a Collected Company, you're certainly going to cast it. But I like Martin's positioning here. That Growth Spiral wasn't bad. And now we're going to see a copy of Languish be drawn. Is this where we read an ad about how you could sign up for the traditional Tinkerer's Cube draft? No?
I don't know what happened there.
Well, okay. We'll
okay.
figure that out in just a moment, I swear.
I hope, yeah. Well, we'll get you an update once we have one there, and hopefully we'll be able to see the conclusion of the match. Things that stood out to me the most, Cedric, has been how good this Gruul deck looked, particularly the on-crop crashers crushing in and making life extraordinarily difficult, even for some of the key cards that you can see bring in, like Elder Gargaroth and such, where it's like, okay, I play the Gargaroth against Gruul, I'm safe, right? Like they don't really have a way to get it out of the way, with damage or anything like that. And if they come in, it's a very difficult attack step for them to make, given my options on blocks. That doesn't seem to be the case here. The Crusher just sort of runs right by it, waving on the way, and says, yeah, take all the damage. And that one turn is often the difference, right? I mean, when people bring in Gargaroth against these type of decks, they take that turn to cast it, but then they can breathe a sigh of relief because it's so hard to actually die from that point. And now that's just not the case anymore.
And that's kind of the idea, too, with Uro as well, or even the land from Anissa that gets animated. The idea is like you just play this creature, and a 3/3 or a 6/6 in the case of Uro is more than enough to kind of stabilize the battlefield. And we've all played those games where the person escapes an Uro, and you look at your battlefield and you just go, I can't get enough damage through this Uro. Why is it a 6/6? Why isn't it like a 3/4? And then you can't attack, and then you can't really block profitably either. On-Crop Crasher kind of solves all of that. And that's kind of the idea behind the card. A 3-mana 3/2 isn't the most exciting thing in the world, but given the text in the card, haste, exert, all that stuff, it makes a lot of sense against specifically Sultai and how their deck is being built right now. So I love the inclusion. I love the idea and kind of the thought process about how this is how I'm going to beat Sultai from trying to stabilize. Is it great in other matchups? It's okay. It's not the best thing in the world, but in that particular matchup, which obviously Martin is trying to beat, it's fantastic.
Okay. All right, looks like we're just trying to get it back to the spot where we were there in game 3 before we can go back down again. We do apologize for the delay there. And it looks like, okay, well, there's now a questing beast on the battlefield.
So what happened here?
Oh, there's a Cry of the Carnarium that got cast, Cedric? Is that what happened?
Yeah, so Cry cleaned up the little knuckleheads, Gallia and Burning Emissary. Chandra's still on the battlefield, loyalty at 6. Questing Beast came down as well. And that Scavenging Ooze that was gusted earlier is back still in Martin's hand. As remember, he did put that on the top of the deck from the gust.
All right, there's a fatal push to clean up the board here, but tick-tock, Chandra, Torch of Defiance ticking ever upwards here, doing the damage that she does in lieu of something better. As you mentioned, hey, if there's a better, this is a math thing, right? This is just like, well, this one, as long as you don't have anything else to do with your mana, you would just cast. Now it looks like that isn't the case here, but yeah. So you just figure out how much damage you want to do, and off you go. And there's an Uro getting eaten up by a Scavenging Ooze to take that particular avenue off the table. Now, unfortunately for Martin, doesn't have enough green mana to also cast Pelt Collector here.
Well, that's actually okay. Well, I mean, okay, I'll take that back. I'm with you insofar as it is unfortunate because he'd like to do that. But if you take a look at the texture of Jean-Emmanuel's hand, the problem that he has right now is that he does not have the ability to attack that Chandra down in a meaningful way to get it off of 7 loyalty.
Which is the ultimate range, right?
Correct. Yeah. Kill the Scavenging Ooze as well. So like he could play a Nissa and then animate the land and attack, and then Martin would snap block, right? And say, okay, I'm going to threaten my Chandra ultimate. You could languish away the Scavenging Ooze, but again, then the problem is not solved insofar as, okay, the Chandra ultimate's going to happen. So I'm trying to think of what the best way to do this is, which is you play the Nissa, you play the Breeding Pool untapped, you cast the Growth Spiral, you hope to hit a black removal spell, and then you untap that land that's a black removal spell, attack, kill the Scavenging Ooze at the Chandra. It did not all work out. Depraz had the opportunity to get a little bit lucky, but unfortunately for him, he did not.
He's used up his luck over in game number 2. Chandra's ultimate gives you an emblem that says whenever you cast a spell, the emblem deals 5 damage to a creature or player. So as you know, once that happens, there's really no hope for Jean-Emmanuel. It's just a matter of putting a couple of things on the stack for Martin Juza, and he's actually looking at it here, but he has his way. He can really do whatever he wants at this point. -7, there's an ultimate from Chandra, Torch of Defiance, and now he's going to put Pelt Collector on the stack. That's going to be 5 damage upstairs, and Jean-Emmanuel's going to have to scoop him up. Martin Juza is victorious. These are 2 players near the top of the standings, by the way. 21 points for Jean-Emmanuel puts him right in that upper tier. And in that bigger group that follows closely was Martin Juza, but he's going to move up to 20 himself, just 1 shy of Jean-Emmanuel with the